Hi, I'm Kurt. I'm from CrashKit, and tonight I'm going to be talking about the 4-man 7-day kit from CrashKit. Obviously, this is for Pep Air, BC, and this kit is going to be carried on all of the Pep Air aircraft in BC. So we're basically going to go over it tonight to give you guys an idea of what's inside of it and what you can expect if you ever have to crack one of these things open. So this is the box that you're going to get in the mail, or this is the box Pep Air is going to get, and this one's actually was going to Aircraft Spruce, and we commandeered this one for tonight. So this is just a stock kit. But the kit itself is a 4-man 7-day kit. It weighs about 17 pounds, just about 18 pounds. And it's got pretty much everything that you're going to need for all of your survival, your food, water, your shelter. And these kits actually are Transport Canada is also aware of these kits, and they do exceed everything that you need for survival and first aid. Now, one of the questions that already came up, once you open it, can you close it again? No, you can't. This is a one-time deal. Now, having the first aid and survival stuff in here, this is not a first aid kit that you're going to use for, oh, you got a cut on your finger, you need a Band-Aid. That is not what this is for. This is for in the event of an actual emergency. Now, what we suggest to people is if you're worried about having an extra couple things around for everyday use, like little things like Band-Aids and stuff, get yourself a $5 Walmart kit, and that way if you use this stuff and you get ramp check, Transport Canada is not going to look at you and say, yeah, but you need 25 Band-Aids. As long as you have this and you're sealed, you'll breeze through any ramp check when it comes to survival and first aid items. So yeah, that's the main thing about this. Now, there's always a little bit of paperwork. This document will be with every single kit that comes out. All of the kits do have a serial number on them, and they're also serialed on your certificate of conformity. Now, this is a document that when we're dealing with military orders, they need the certificate of conformity. What we suggest you guys do with this is take it and put it with the C of R, or the aircraft registration insurance, and that way when transport says what's in there, you can pull this out, and if they have any questions, they can call me with the serial number, and I can tell them exactly what's in it. So as long as this little seal here is still in place, they won't even question you on it. So we'll bust this little thing open. I guess if you're in the wild, you can just put a stick in here and break that. It's actually a 4-pound pull on here. Pop that off. And I guess right off the bat, I'll tell you a little bit about the case. It's a Pelican case. Everything in here is original equipment manufacturer. So when I use brand names like Gerber, Leatherman, Smiths, Pelican, it's all brand name stuff. And everything in here does carry the same guarantee as if you would buy it yourself. So the Pelican cases, obviously they're crush proof, they're waterproof, and like I was mentioning just a little while ago, we have had at least 12 aircraft that have gone down with these on board. So we have got some of the kits back to look at them to see what they've been like after an incident. Unfortunately, nobody's ever had the ability to use it, but if they would have made it to that phase of the survival, the kits were all good. Even ones that have sat in the bottom of a lake for 2 weeks, they're still sealed. There's no water inside of them. They're still good. They do float. Every single one does float as well. So it's and that's one of the nice little bonuses. This kit is a 4-man 7-day. Now, the way our product line breaks down, we've got 3 kits. We call them an Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. Those are for personal individual use. The Alpha is just a little tiny guy that's designed to fit in a cargo pocket. So we all know that if you're looking at a water landing, an eventful water landing, the only thing that you're going to have when you come out is what's on your person. Everything else is going to sink. So we do have a smaller kit for that. Then we've got the professional line, which is the 2-man 7-day, 4-man 7-day, 6, and 10. So this is the 4 because obviously usually we've got 4 people on board. So that's kind of where this fits in the lineup. This is about one of our medium-sized kits. So when you pop it open, you'll see it's awfully full. The thing is packed like a brick. So it's, once I get this stuff out, you'll see it's definitely not going to go back in there. Now, just kind of a side note, when this originally, the idea for this came, I'm a commercial pilot as well, and back in, it was about 2003, I was working at a flight school, and a guy came by, the owner and the guy who owned the airplane were doing a mountain course, and they didn't come back. And the pilot was well trained. And he had all of the security or survival knowledge. He knew everything about first aid, but he didn't live through the crash phase of the incident. The passenger knew nothing about first aid. And what he did was, as he was going over the last ridge, he remembered seeing a little road down below. And he thought, well, I'll just crawl over this mountain and go to the road and somebody will pick me up, because he just simply didn't know better. And at that point I said, you know, there needs to be something that says, do not panic, do not leave the scene of the crash. Because survival kits are all well and good, the little tiny ones, if you have the knowledge to use them. This one is designed for the lowest common denominator. It's designed for passengers who know nothing about survival other than what they've seen on TV. So this is basically, right off the top, this gives you your priority list on what you need to do, what you shouldn't do, you should stay with the aircraft, and obviously how to make yourself more visible when guys like us are up there looking for them. So there's a little bit of paperwork there, and worst case scenario, if you don't need it, it always doubles as kindling as well. One of the nice things about the way these kits are put together is a lot of the products we've designed or we've chosen do have multiple uses. So depending on how creative you are, you can use them for all sorts of different things. There is an accident report sheet. Now, realistically, in the event of a catastrophic failure in the mountains, this is kindling, but it's one of the things Transport Canada requires on board for your first aid kit. So there's a few things in here that are only in here for the sake of Transport Canada says you need them. So to start off, right off the top, pull one of these out. Glow sticks. These are 12-hour glow sticks. If you're dealing with one of these in the wintertime, in summertime when it's nice and warm, you'll probably get 14 hours good light out of this. In the winter, when it's minus 20, you're only going to get 6 hours out of it. They just don't work that good in the extreme cold. But these are right on top, so it's something that, okay, it's nighttime, you know, you find the kit, you need to look into it, crack, okay, now you've got the ability to actually start going through the...
How many are in there?
There's 4. So that's basically 4 days worth of light or 4 nights worth of light. One of the other things that, right off the bat, peel these out, there's a couple packages of water. Now there's also water purification. So where we fly anywhere in Canada, you should be able to find some sort of water that you can use for survival purposes. That's what the water purification is for. But this, right off the bat, actually there's four 4-ounce packages of water in here as well. So that's something that cleaning out wounds, drinking, obviously whatever you need water for, but there's some there right off the top. Notepad, pencil will be down in here somewhere, but that's to write notes to people that find you if it gets to that point. There's going to be a lot of first aid stuff scattered throughout here. The big burn-free packages. Now we know burns are somewhat common in a crash, and these things are like gold when it comes to that. I don't know if you've ever had the joy of using one of these, but as soon as you touch one of these to the burn, it stops burning. It is the best stuff. And again, it's the brand name stuff. And these things, along with a lot of the other stuff in the kit, do have expiration dates. Now, especially with your kits, everything you've got the full expiration date. So when the food and water says 5 years, that has a 5-year expiration date as well. So it's this stuff will be it's all brand new and it's all good stuff. So there's 4 of those. And
that's strictly for burns, not wounds, though, right?
Yes, that's strictly for burns. There's all sorts of wound care in here as well, but that's right off the bat. Again, you know, it's and a lot of the scenarios that I've read about crashes is there's a crash, something's burning, you're trying to get out, you just burned your hands. This right off the top is going to be.
I've used those, and they work really fast after a burn. If you get it on before you burn, even better. Because I've been able to hold my hand in a propane torch to the count of 10, and I don't even burn my skin.
Yeah. This has some magical property of it just takes the heat right out of it.
You don't burn.
Yeah, and it's nice because I've got some of these kicking around in the smaller packages at home with just the liquid in it. These are actually 4x4 pads, so these you can put on, and then take a piece of duct tape, wrap it around, and it's good to go. But even at home with the wood stove, I burned myself. You put a little bit of this stuff on, and it's as soon as it hits it, it's gone. This stuff is definitely.
Relief is gone. The burn's still there.
Well, the burn's still there, true, and when it dries out after 12 hours or 14 hours, okay, it's going to really suck, but that's when you crack open the next one. And hopefully you can, if it's bad enough, you get your medical treatment before then. So, Ziploc bag. This can be used for purifying water, can be used for all sorts of things, collecting little things. And again, when you're looking at the different items in the kit, you always have to ask yourself, what else can this be used for? And things like the paracord, which I'll talk about, there's a million uses other than what it appears to be. So when you're in a survival situation and you're sitting there waiting for somebody else to fly over and find you, you got lots of stuff to do to keep yourself entertained, and including a deck of playing cards, which we'll get to in a bit here. Hand warmers. A bunch of hand warmers. So if you're dealing in the cold, and let's crack one of these open. You can throw that one around and play with it. They're 6 hours. There's also foot warmers in here. Now the foot warmers are designed a little bit different than the hand warmers. The hand warmers will last 6 hours. These will last 4 hours. But here's a word of caution on these ones. These ones are a whole lot hotter, so they're designed to be put in your boot. You lace your boot up so there's very limited oxygen. If you crack one of these open and just use it as is, it gets really, really hot really, really fast. Now, one of the things that I've tried, and it worked out pretty well, is there's emergency bags and emergency blankets. So you've got your little Mylar bag. You crawl into that, you crack one of these open, and you've got yourself like a little Dutch oven. It works great. So when it's minus 30 out and you need instant shelter, instant heat, crawl into one of those, open one of these up, and you're fine. You can last till morning. Throw those out of the way. All right, a little bit of sustenance next. Hot chocolate. Now the everyday Carnation instant hot chocolate. Now it's awesome if you have the ability to make hot chocolate. If you don't, you put this in your food and sustenance, and the sugar in here will give you a nice sugar rush for, if you've been out for 2 or 3 days, or this kit's designed for 7 days, you need to go for a hike, you need to go find wood, you're absolutely exhausted. Chew on a package of this. It'll give you the sugar rush that you need to, give you the energy to get the job done. These are benzochlorium wipes. Now, obviously, with the restrictions that the government has put on, you can't have alcohol wipes because you could be a terrorist. So those are prohibited. These are the benzochlorium, and they do the exact same thing. So they're for wound care. You can also use them for cleaning your hands or whatever else. Cleaning up wounds is what they're designed for. They're quite effective, and there's a pile of those. Squenchers. Squenchers are a neat little product that it's like a Gatorade. So again, we're going into, you've been out for 3 or 4 days, you got to go collect some wood. You mix some of this stuff with water, you've got Gatorade. It's an electrolytic replacement mix. And so that kind of goes in your food and water type section. These guys are Aquatab's water purification tablets. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the old school little iodine glass bottles. You got the iodine and the neutralizer. Okay, well, this is next generation of water purification. This is not an iodine-based, this is a chlorine-based. Now, pardon me, interestingly enough, these are the only product that's certified by the World Health Organization and the Red Cross for pregnant women and children. They've got a 5-year shelf life, and each tablet does 1 liter of water. And there's 10 tablets per card, and there's 2, 4, 6, 8 cards. So as long as you can find yourself a little bit of swamp, now it doesn't change the taste of the water. So iodine is, if you've ever drank iodine water, it's disgusting. This doesn't change the taste. So if you find swamp water and purify it, it's still going to taste like swamp water. Insect repellent wipes. Now the insect repellent wipes, somewhere down in here will also have sunscreen wipes. They work together. So you can put your sunscreen wipe on, wait for that to dry, and then you put your insect repellent wipe on. Now if you happen to be flying in some of the northern regions, I know especially up in like northern Ontario and stuff, the black flies are horrific up there. These are going to be a lifesaver. Now, I'm not sure exactly how many there are, but I know there's, well, at least a couple that we've found so far. There may be more down in there, but this will at least offer you some relief for that.
So that's annoying, but sort of.
Well, basically, it's a moistened paper towel is what it is. So it's, in fact, here, I'll show you. It doesn't even smell that bad.
So you just wipe that out?
Yep, you just take this and you just wipe it all over, and that'll get rid of the bugs. I'll pass that around as well so you guys can take a look. It actually doesn't even smell like anything. But all of the stuff in here has been thoroughly tested. So all of these items, there's been several of us in the company that have tested every single thing. And as long as they work and they work well, okay, we're good to put them in. So even though they don't stink, they still definitely work. Wet naps. Wet naps can kind of go in the same area as the benzoyl chloride, only these are just typical cleanup wet naps that you get at like Kentucky Fried Chicken or wherever you happen to go to eat. Earl Grey, nice little piece of home. If you, see, and those smell really good. So if, obviously if you're sitting out in the middle of nowhere, you can take one of these. Now with these Mylar containers, one of the nice things, and actually I'll just jump ahead a little bit to the food as well. The food is, I'm sure you're all familiar with the survival food. Now, we use two different suppliers for this, Mayday and Mainstay, depending on which one you get. They're both 5 years, they both contain exactly the same thing. Biggest difference is these are lemon, the other ones are apple cinnamon. So now there's 6 blocks in each of these, each one containing 600 calories of food. So that is more than enough to keep a group of people alive for 7 days. My suggestion when it comes to this is one of the things I've tried and it works beautifully. You take one of these packages, obviously you open this up, you take one of these packages, tear a little hole in the top and set it right beside your campfire up against the rocks. The water will boil in here, so that way you can actually make hot chocolate or tea. Or once it's boiling, you open it up and you drop 1 square of this in and it dissolves instantly. Throw a handful of berries in and you have apple cinnamon porridge for breakfast. And it actually tastes really well, like it tastes really good. So yeah, so this stuff here, it's a 5-year shelf life, and yeah, this is the apple cinnamon, non-thirst provoking, and this is the same stuff that the militaries use as well. Sunscreen, lotion. Now this is the stuff that works in conjunction with the Skeeter Safe, and so you can take that, and obviously if you're in a flying in Saskatchewan in the middle of summertime and it's 40 above, that stuff is going to be a real lifesaver for you too. Fishing kits. Now, each one of these will contain a fishing kit with, I don't know if you can see that there, I'll pass this one around for you guys too. It's got hooks, it's got weights, and there's a fishing line in here as well. So if you need to, you can try to catch yourself some lunch. Calcium carbonate tablets, because once you have your oatmeal and porridge, you might get heartburn. So those are some heartburn medications for you. Smith sharpener, you know what, I'm just going to leave that there for a few minutes and we'll talk about that in a bit. One of the items that Transport Canada says you need for your kit is a scalpel. So this is a surgical grade scalpel. Obviously there's a million uses in a survival situation. Yeah, there's also another knife in here as well, but we'll just let you guys figure out what to use a scalpel for. Vaseline, a million uses for Vaseline, from chapped lips, dry skin. You can use that for dealing with wounds. This guy here, Gerber suspension. Now, all of the kits may have slightly different products. So when it comes to the multi-tools, we all distribute Leatherman and we also distribute Gerber. So half of the tools are going to have a Leatherman wingman, the other half are going to have the Gerber suspension. Now, typical multi-tool, we like this one a little bit better than the Leatherman. We find the saw works better. So if you're building yourself some tent poles, this is going to be one of your best bets to cut down the trees and the branches and prep that. It's also got all sorts of interesting tools on there, your screwdriver, your knives, things
What
like
make
that.
is it?
Say, this one is a Gerber suspension.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And the other brand that you'll find in the PEP Air kits is a Leatherman wingman. And they're pretty much the same thing. They pretty much do the same thing. And I'll pass this one around too so you guys can check out the features on that. Actually, I'll jump back to this. This is a Smith sharpener. It's a pocket sharp. It's got carbide blades that are coarse and fine, and it's also got a diamond sharpening tool. This, survival-wise, there could be many uses for this thing as well. You can use it as an awl. If you need to sew up some clothes, you can poke holes and stuff. But for the most part, this one's pretty simple. You got your little handhold here, you put your knife in, you run your knife back and forth through the coarse, you run it through the fine, and it's going to be razor sharp again. Now, the cool thing about this one, this little top part here, you can see with the one little black screw, that screwdriver will actually fit this. This will pop off, so when you actually use it up, you'll probably go through the entire knife first. But you take that out, they both reverse, and then once you use the whole thing up, you can flip the sharpeners over and you've got a brand new tool again. Pass that guy around as well. Here's another saw. This is a Sierra saw. I'm sure you guys have all seen these ones. These ones are quite effective as well. I know there's also a diamond saw in here somewhere as well that we'll get to. But there's one of the things that we have tried to do with the CrashKit is when we say there's fire starting, there's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 methods of fire starting. When you want to deal with cutting wood, for example, there's 3 or 4 or 5 methods of cutting wood. So we've tried to make it very redundant at the same time as useful. So I know you guys have all seen this as well, but I'll pass that guy around too. Actually, there's my diamond saw right there. Now, this is actually an amputation saw, is what we use. So, worst case scenario, and I know we've all heard the stories about people having to deal with amputation type stuff in survival situations. This is your go-to tool. Now, it also cuts through aluminum. It also cuts, if you want to go through bigger trees, this thing will cut through pretty much anything because there's fine diamond chunks on it. The handles, you just unravel that and it'll be about this long. You just hook your hands in here and you go back and forth. It's a very, very effective cutting tool. That'll go through bone like it's butter. Hey, you can open and give it a try if you want to. 12-in-1 scissors. Now, these scissors are designed to come apart. You can use it as a knife. It's also got a lot of other little tools on here as well. Can opener, bottle opener. This is a little hex nut set, which may be handy in the cockpit if you're just doing a precautionary somewhere and you need to fix something. Pass those around too. Deck of cards. Now, if you're going to be sitting in the wild for a while, all you need to do is sit there and wait for rescue to come. This is to pass your time. And the joke that we always use is you need to play solitaire. Because even if you're sitting on the top of the mountain and you deal yourself out a hand of solitaire, somebody's going to come up behind you and say, yeah, move the queen over to the king. Yeah. So that's kind of why we throw these in. I think it increases your chance of rescue. There's a couple more lights here. This is a Pelican LED. I think it's an L1 1930. And it's waterproof. It's got, I think it's a 15 to 20 hour burn time on 3 button cell batteries. But again, just like the Pelican case, this thing is bulletproof. You can't break them. They float, and it's designed as a dive light, as well as the little flasher, which I'll get to in a second. And so it doesn't matter how brutal you treat this thing, it's still going to give you light, it's still going to work well. So, and again, you've got these up here to, give you an overall view if it's nighttime, but now, whoops. When I do trade shows, one of my challenges to people is I have a handful of these, and I'll challenge people, if you can stand here and break it, I've got a brand new one I'll give to you. And we've done that in a lot of different hangars, and people, just slamming them down, and I've never had one that's broke. They just simply don't break. But yeah, so that'll give you some more light there. Now the next Pelican, and what you see me taking off here are all the actual instruction manuals for these different devices. Same thing with the water purification tablets. It has all your information on it. All of these little things have the information on it as well. Now, this is actually designed as a dive light. So the purpose of this light is to hook onto your scuba tank. Stick it on your scuba tank, and that way people can see you. You can actually see this from almost a kilometer away. So to mark a trail, mark your campsite, whatever. Now, I'm guessing it would be visible from the air at night. Obviously, we don't go out and fly and look for people at night, but this is a fantastic little device too. It's pretty simple. You screw it one way, it goes off. You screw it the other way until the light comes on, and it will stay, and this will flash. I think it's a 16 to 18 hour flash time on this one. This one is built to the same spec. That is absolutely indestructible. You're not going to break those things. Now, on the topic of lights, pull that little thing off. Here's another little LED light. Now, this little LED light is attached to a 6-function whistle. You have your compass, you have your magnifying glass, and you also have a signal mirror. Now, this is just a normal little signal mirror. We do have a heliograph in here as well. I'll show you that in a minute. But not only does this qualify for signaling devices for Transport Canada, it's good to check yourself in the mirror if you need to. This magnifying glass can also be used to start fires. So this is another fire starting device. We have successfully started fires with it. Works pretty good. You've also got a thermometer on the back, so you can see just how cold it is. And obviously, it's a whistle. It works well. So now in a survival situation, 2 people are going to go out to go get wood. We've got a 4-function whistle as well. So the 4-function whistle has the magnifying glass in it, the compass, the thermometer, and as well it acts as a whistle too. So you do have communication. We've tested these against several other whistle brands, including the Fox 40, and these perform just as well. We found the Fox 40 works better indoors. For some reason, these work better outdoors. It just seems they carry farther. So that's why we went with these guys. Now here's the real signal mirror. This is the heliograph. Again, instructions on the back, and this has the little grid. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys are all familiar with this, but this is the kind when you have your light source, your sun, you shine it down, you put it on your hand, you look through the little dot, and it will actually place a light source so you can see exactly where the light source is. So if there's an aircraft coming, it's not a matter of using that and trying to figure out where the beam is. And obviously you can put your fingers out and go back and forth, keep the airplane between your fingers and then shine the light back and forth. With this, it's a whole lot more accurate. So you hold it up, you shine the light on your hand, you look down, and you can actually see exactly where the light is bouncing. All of the instructions are on the back of this as well. Now, one of the cool things about this one is, worst case scenario, if this does get bumped a little harder than it should and you break this, it actually works better. And what we've seen happen is if you break it, it will basically shatter like a window does, but it will keep all of the pieces in place. So that way, instead of having one solid beam, it's almost sending it out like a disco ball. So at a distance, it's lots of smaller flashes as opposed to one. So even when they're broken, they still work really well. Pass that guy around too. Food procurement, snare wire. Now, snare wire can also be used for a million other different things in a survival situation. Obviously, you can use your imaginations for that, but there's about 15 feet worth of snare wire here. Works well. This is one of the Transport Canada required things. This is a finger splint, thumb splint. Break your finger, find the duct tape in here, wrap it around there, you're good to go. "65 feet of flagging tape." Now, one of the great things about this flagging tape is this stuff is actually pretty tough. So not only can it be used for flagging off trails, you can also make some signaling devices, because obviously when we're looking for people, we're looking for movement. So you can set up, and what I've seen done before is you take a stick and you tie 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of these and wave the stick, and you've almost got yourself a little banner. It's really good for attracting attention. It's also good where you can stretch it out a little bit, and then it becomes almost like a cord. Pulled down a little too hard. But now you can use this for tying tent pegs up, or building your shelter. This one has multiple uses as well. But yeah, there's 65 feet of that. So get creative in making a signaling device for somebody to come find you. Pain aid free acetaminophen tablets. I've often wondered just how effective a handful of acetaminophen is going to be if you just survived yourself an airplane crash, but I guess it's better than nothing. This is, again, one of the Transport Canada requirements for your first aid kit. Here's a couple more as well. I forget the actual dimensions on the medical tape, but the medical tape is also to Transport Canada spec. Tensor bandage. Here's another light source. This is called a pack light, and this is, I love these little lights. It's glow in the dark, so if you happen to drop it in the dark, the flashlight itself is only this big. And with the 9-volt batteries on them, this will last you, if you turn it on, it will last the entire 7 days, easy. And it is a fantastic little light. Flip the switch one way, you've got a white light. Flip it the other way, you've got another red flasher. Again, marking trails, marking your campsite. If you see the ground search and rescue guys coming up, they're probably going to notice this if it's getting close to evening. Between this and your whistle, you'll probably be doing pretty good. But yeah, this guy is actually surprisingly bright as well. And that is, I would say that is in the very same durability range as the Pelican stuff. I've never tried to torture test this like I have with the Pelican, but I know they're surprisingly durable. Flip it left and right. Flip it towards the side that you want it to work. Lip balm, hydrating lip balm. Eye patch, another Transport Canada thing. Now I'm starting to find some little Band-Aids. Actually, these are, I forget what these ones are called. There's a special name. Steri strips, that's the one, thank you. And so these are, you obviously know what they are, Steri strips. So there's going to be a handful of these in here as well. And I'm not sure they're required by Transport, but if you get yourself a nice size cut, these are brilliant at holding them together. Okay, I found some more Skeeter wipes. Here's the information card. Okay, the information card on the pack light that's going around right now, it's got a 5-year shelf life on the battery, and it's got a 600-hour burn time. So it's, like I said, you can turn it on at the beginning of your survival phase. 7 days later, it's still going to be on. It's definitely a good one. And again, a lot of these different things are covered by the manufacturer's warranty. So this one has a 5-year warranty. Pelican is lifetime. We've only chosen products for the kits that are, it's all high end. There's nothing that's cheap about the kit, and it's designed to work for you. Windproof, waterproof matches. Now this is one of my favorite, I should have got a glass of water for this. This is a Sparklight flint and tinder. Now, a very similar device is issued to US military personnel, and the only difference is theirs is green, ours is orange. If you drop it, this is one you definitely don't want to lose. Now, this is good for, I think it's 15,000 sparks or 20,000 sparks. It'll go forever. Now, the tinder that we include with it, I got to be careful when I do this. It actually floats, it's waterproof, so you can stick it in the water. So if you're trying to build a fire in the water, basically you just peel this stuff apart, hit it with a spark. Now I've learned my lesson, I don't do this anymore as a demonstration unless it's floating in a glass of water. Because you hit it with the spark, the whole thing flares up and it burns for about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Now, along the same line, we have fire starting sticks. Now these are compressed wood soaked in wax, but it's also got an accelerant on it as well. So if you take a glass of water, drop this in, flip one spark on the top, set this on top, you've got a 15-minute burn, even if it's wet. So even in nasty conditions, this is the primary way to start your little fire. And as chemically as these are, they don't really smell that bad. It doesn't leave like a residue or anything. Because I know the old school, like when we first started, we were using the Coghlan ones, and their tinders are like the little wax chunks. And you know, if all of a sudden your airplane gets exceedingly hot, it melts. Yes, exactly. Vaseline is also another really good fire starter that you can use for that as well. Antibiotic ointment, again for the first aid kit. Lifesavers. Lifesavers, hard candy, and cough drops. Now, we have various lifesavers in different ones. These are actually for the diabetics. So, or a candy for yourself, like to try to moderate your sugar levels. Or again, going back to the same thing I said with the hot chocolate, if you are spending a couple days out there and you haven't eaten, you're exhausted, you need to go collect wood or water or whatever you need to do, this just might be the boost that you need in order to do it. Small splint, popsicle stick, goes along with this one here. You can build yourself a little splint for your finger or whatever. That's a Transport Canada thing. I'm sure that would have a lot of other uses that people could get creative with as well. Kindling, yeah, absolutely. Safety pins. Now, the safety pins, million uses for those, but I think the first aid kits also have the triangle bandages, and those also have more safety pins in them as well. And I've heard stories about people using these for things like fish hooks. And yeah, so it's, again, be creative. Here are your pencils, Canadian pencils, made in Canada. Everything is produced, the kit itself is produced in Canada. Obviously not all the different products are Canadian, but it is made in Canada. More squenchers, electrolytic replacement mix, couple little candles. Sewing kit, needles. Now, sewing up clothes, sewing up yourself. Now, I'll show you when it comes to the paracord that we use that, okay, it's a tool that can be used for stitches if you need. I wouldn't necessarily want to have to do it, but if you're in this situation, what do, right? Zip ties, tweezers, and nail clipper. I know the tweezers are another transport thing. SAM splints. You guys are probably pretty familiar with these. They've got the metal interior, so you can bend it to whatever shape you want. For wrists, and actually it gives you diagrams and stuff on there, measurements on the side. So you can pretty much splint whatever you want with these little guys. They're quite effective. First aid book. Now, if you don't know anything about first aid, this will give you the very, very basics. Now, I know most of us, we've all got our actual first aid, but again, these kits are designed for the lowest common denominator. If somebody has zero first aid knowledge, this is at least enough to show you how to stitch yourself up or deal with cold-related injuries, burns, things like that. It's a basic guide for first aid. But yeah, that's another Transport Canada item. Some reading material, more Ziploc bags, more Skeeter stuff. Bags, big, thick, heavy black bags. All sorts of different uses for these guys as well. One of the things that I would personally use this for is stuff it full of leaves and call it a bed. Instead of lying on the cold ground, you can use it to contain things if you're going to move camp, to get yourself into a safer area if you happen to land in a bad area. You can use it for all sorts of different things. You can also use it for a water bag. But yeah, that's quite a versatile thing. Yeah, you could use that for rain gear, but we've also got ponchos in here as well. So that's already covered. Tinfoil. You can make yourself cooking utensils with this. Signaling device. There's all sorts. I'm sure if you go to Google and what can you use tinfoil for in a survival situation, I'm sure it can give you a lot more ideas than I can give you off the top of my head. Biohazard bags. This is, again, a Transport Canada thing. A couple different sizes. Dressing disposal bag. So if you're dealing with somebody that does have wounds, instead of just leaving your bloody bandages around the campsite, here's an effective way to deal with them. And yes, there are non-latex, forget what the brand is, but we do have the non-latex gloves as well, which will, Virtril. Nitrile is, that's one that we use. So we've got those. Again, some more of these Ziploc bags. And these Ziploc bags, one of the things that right off the bat that I like to suggest people use them for is with the water purification. Now, one of these suggestions, and we deal with the manufacturers, so the manufacturer of this has said if you're actually drinking swamp water and you find it really questionable, use a double dosage. Use 2 instead of 1. You're not going to OD on this stuff. Drop 2 little pills in the bottom of this, fill it with water, shake it up for a bit, give it 5 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever the instructions say, and now you have potable water, and it's going to be safe for you. So that's the bottom of that part of the kit. Now I've got a few other things here, and by this point you've already got your knife out so you can get into this stuff easier. 4 rain ponchos, 4 triangular bandages, 200 inches of duct tape, 4 blankets, 4 sleeping bags, 1 splint padding, 25 Band-Aids, 4 knuckle bandages, and 2 disposable thermometers. Now the thermometers are obviously the Transport Canada portion. Duct tape, 100 inches per roll, and it's on a plastic type card, so you're not going to lose the extra 6 inches or 8 inches at the bottom either. But here's your rain poncho. And we do like to stick to bright colors. Now obviously when you open the thing up, it's not quite as bright as when it's condensed like this. But they're not camouflage ponchos. It's something that if you've got 4 people walking around with those on, it's
just like Niagara Falls.
yeah.
One size fits all.
One size fits all. Now those obviously, again going back to the what can this stuff be used for, it's a rain poncho, but it can also be used for shelter. You can also use it around your campsite for, actually if you want to pass that back here, I'll show this one on camera as well. You've got the little hood up top. But again, bright colors for as much as you can. Try to distinguish yourself from the forest that you're sitting in. But yeah, and being a 4-man kit, there's going to be 4 ponchos, 4 of the Mylar. The ones with the yellow stripe are the sleeping bags. And this is the one where my suggestion is to use the foot warmers for it. This stuff is surprisingly tough, and it also works good as a signaling device as well. So there is your instant sleeping bag. And pass this around, if you want to crawl inside of it, it's actually, they are cozy. They're very cozy. They're surprisingly warm. So you take one of these, and there's 4 of these as well. So if it's minus 20 degrees out, you crawl in there, seal it up around your head, open one of these. The whole thing will heat up based on the heat of this. And yes, we've tried that several times when it's been really cold. It's worked great. It's worked fantastic. So yes, there's going to be 4 of those guys if you want to take a look at that. Yeah, if you just kind of put your hand in and wrap your hand around, you'll notice within seconds it will start warming up. Like they're surprisingly functional if you've never used those. And then obviously if you're going to be lying on the ground, you still have conduction. Is that what it's when you're actually against the cold surface? So we do have the blankets as well that you can use as ground tarps, ground cover for laying down on. Or you can, again, more signaling devices. So if you're setting up camp and you want to be visible from the air, you lay down 4 of those, 4 of the blankets, all of the ponchos. It's going to be you're going to be noticed. So again, there's your ground sheet, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of thinking in order to make yourself a little tent or whatever from the different supplies there. Let you play with that one too. Couple tensor band or triangle bandages, and yes, the triangle bandages also have their own safety pins. So again, for medical, these are quite effective as well. You can just throw that on the floor. Okay, now we're getting into more of the Transport Canada required stuff. Band-Aids. Now, this one here is a Type A 1-6 first aid kit, and it will have everything you need. But now you see what I mean, that you're not just going to open the case, pull out a Band-Aid, and close it back up again. It's not going to work like that. But in the event that you actually have a situation, you've got the Band-Aids, and it's all by Transport Canada recommendations. In fact, we exceed all Transport Canada recommendations. Several different types, butterfly bandages, again, almost like the steri strips. Those are pretty good. And thermometers, so you can check your fever. This one here is orange survival bags, a couple pairs of medical gloves, 50 feet of paracord, cloth water filters, assorted gauze, more splint padding, 4 mosquito head nets. Now the mosquito head nets, that's one of the more versatile things in the kit as well. Now yes, like I was saying, if you're flying in northern Saskatchewan, northern BC, northern Ontario, one of these is going to be quite handy to put over the top of your head and keep the mosquitoes off. But it wouldn't take somebody very creative to take this and a few sticks and you make yourself a fishing net. Or there's all sorts of different things that this can be used for as well. But being a 4-person kit, there's 4 of these within every kit. Bandanas, we call them cloth water filters. But again, if you do a Google search for bandana survival situation, you'll find a whole lot more uses for these than just water filtration. It's pretty easy to make a water filter in the wild, a little bit of charcoal, some sand, gravel, a couple cloths like this, and you'll be good to go. Or you can use it as a head covering, or you can use it to tie on, say, your 4x4 bandages. You put one of those on, wrap it around, tie it up. There's all sorts of different uses for that. But there's several of these in the case as well. Different gauze, and the gauze itself, it's, I like to say it's just kind of a random assortment, but it's not actually random. It's all stuff that, this is what Transport Canada requires for a Type A 1-6 first aid kit. So again, as long as this is sealed, like the transport guys, they're aware of what these are, and they know that, yes, it contains everything that you need to exceed recommendations. Splint padding. These are labeled cloth water filters. But again, they can be used for all sorts of different things as well. Gloves, the nitrile gloves. Splint paddings, eye compress, cotton sponge, 3x3, 4x4, and I know those are transport requirements. Pardon me. More 3x3s, more 4x4s, and those are in great big, thick, I think this is a 6 mil orange bag. So you can quite easily, well, all sorts of uses for this thing too. Again, good signal, high visibility, cut the end, you can make yourself a little tent with it. So between this, the ponchos, all of the bags and blankets, there's more than enough shelter for 4 people to cuddle together on the side of the mountain while you're waiting for somebody to come pick you up. Still see me over top of that stuff? And it looks like last, but definitely not least, this is, in my opinion, the most essential piece in the entire kit. This is paracord. Now, it's not rope, and this is actually 550-7 mil-spec paracord. The beautiful thing about this, if I can find an end here, and there's 50 feet of it, absolutely essential in a survival situation. Now, the thing about paracord is 550-7, which means that it will hold 550 pounds, and it's a 7 internal strand. So anything from shoelaces, I'm going to cut the end off this piece. Now, the 7 internal strands so you've still got your original piece, okay? Now, the sheath itself, I think, is about a 75-pound tensile breaking strength. So this can still be used for, again, tying up shelters, making traps, all sorts of things like that. This stuff here, this, again, in a survival situation, this is gold. There's 7 strands. Now, each one of these strands will break down into another 3 strands. And then each one of those will break down even farther. So with something like this, you need some fishing line. Okay, there's definitely fishing line in that kit. You want to have 7 or 8 or 10 people fishing at once, or I guess it's a 4-man kit. So if everybody wants to fish, you can take 50 feet of paracord, multiply it by 7. That's how many strands you have. Multiply that by 3. Now that's how many strands you have. And again, this is solid stuff. And I'll pass that one around while I'm talking here. So you take this combined with wherever my needles went before, and this is a first aid piece that you can use to stitch yourself up. Or if all of a sudden your clothes are ripped, or you need to, it's just a good high quality multi-use nylon string is what it is. I'll throw one of those at you. I'm sure you've seen lots of those. But I know even when I'm flying and doing the search and rescue stuff, my boot laces are paracord. It's black. And that way I know that if worse comes to worse, I can pull my boot lace. I've got 10 feet. Now I've got 50 feet, and I can use it. And then, like you were mentioning, for either traps or putting together a shelter, or there's snares, all sorts of different things you can use it for. One of the other things too is the most popular color for paracord, especially in the military, is either camouflage or black. All of the kits will have different, we buy it by the 1,000-foot roll. And so it's going to be, I think they called this one candy cane. But all of the different colors that we use for it is stuff that you could take and drop it in any environment you're going to fly in, and it's like, oh, there it is. You're not going to lose it. So if it's in snow, you're not going to lose it. If it's in the desert, you're not going to lose it, especially in the forest. So that's one of the other things too is, we've tried to make everything as high vis as possible, because if you lose this, that's a critical thing. There are other methods of starting fire in here, but this is the one that's going to, keep you going indefinitely. So with a kit like this, you look at survival people like Les Stroud, who can survive 6 months with a paper clip and a shoelace. Something like this, he could survive forever. Like there's more than enough here. The more knowledge you have, the less gear you need. But these are designed, like I said, for the lowest common denominator, that anybody could take this kit and sit and survive for a week while they're waiting to be picked up. So there's your tour of CrashKit. Now you can see trying to fit all of this stuff back in. You can see that it's just not going to fit, which is why we've got the tag. It's a one-use kit. Sure, there's Band-Aids and stuff, but don't open it. Leave it for when you actually need it. So those are the contents of a 4-man, 7-day kit. You guys have any other questions?
So your case, a lot of the stuff inside the case, aside from the whistles and the knives, et cetera, have got a 5-year shelf life.
Yes, there's actually all sorts of different shelf lives. So for example, the hand warmers are a 1 year, actually December of 2019. So that's the best that you can get for these. Now, interestingly, we've been doing this. We were incorporated in 2006, 2005. So we've got a lot of this stuff back already. So we test it on a regular basis to see how it's going to handle. But yes, there are different expiration dates. So that's a year. The food, the water is 5 years. So the recertification process, what we do is the way Transport Canada looks at it is they say your kit needs to be recertified based on manufacturer recommendations. So depending on the environment, depending on how it's being used, obviously this is, we treat this as commercial service. These ones, we're giving a full 5 years. The acetaminophen, for example, is going to expire within 1 year. But that doesn't really reduce the survivability impact of this kit based on an actual situation. So things like the paracord, that whole pile that you've got over there with the knives, the flashlights, the saws, things like that, that's never going to change. So what we do is when it does come time for recertification, you send us the kit back. And this is for all of our kits straight across the board. You ship it back to us, we dump it out, and we basically make 2 piles. We make a pile like the stuff I passed around there. That stuff is never going to change. But what we do is we replace the 9-volt battery. In the Pelican 1930, we replace the button cells so you get brand new ones. We take out all the food, the water, things like that. So now we have a pile of stuff that has expired and a pile of stuff that hasn't expired. So then we basically replace all of this. So these are, I think, $10.95 a piece or $8.95 a piece, something like that. So we add 2 more, and then now you pay $10.95 a piece to replace these 2. Things like the Pelican case, and obviously the Pelican cases are not cheap. But even we've seen these things, bounce around the back of aircraft for 20 years, and you're not going to hurt the case. You never need to replace that case, ever. And if the worst damage that I've seen to it is a little chunk of one of the back fins actually snapped off, and that's actually after it fell out of the back of an airplane. So even in a case like that, okay, that's all covered by warranty. So all of anything that's like the Gerber suspension, the Leatherman wingman, that's 100% lifetime warranty. If anything ever goes wrong, we just replace that for free. So basically, you send the kit back, we make a pile and say, okay, the squenchers need to be replaced, the hot chocolate needs to be replaced, the food, the water, acetaminophen, hand warmers, glow sticks, I think are a 4-year shelf life. And then we say, okay, you now need $50 worth of product or $75 worth of product. You pay the $75 for the new product, we pack it back in, we ship you back the kit. So you're never you're never going to have to replace stuff like that, like the Gerber suspension. That you only need one of them. It's never going to go bad. Same thing with the Pelican products as well.
But you said those heat pads things, they aren't good for a year.
These are good for a year. But the thing is, it's not like December 19th comes around and they quit working. So what it is they say these are up to 6 hours, and it's the same with the glow sticks. It's when it expires, instead of getting 6 hours a year later, you're only going to get 5 hours. A year after that, you're probably only going to get 4 hours. But in reality, in the event of an actual airplane crash, getting 4 hours instead of 6, with the rest of this stuff, that's not going to decrease your survivability. Everything else that you need is still going to be there, and it's all still going to work. You know, because there's a lot of things like this, we consider these convenience items. So the paracord is an essential survival tool. The Gerber suspension is an essential tool. The saws, the things like the spark light, this is an essential survival tool. These are just nice to have.
What's the turnaround time?
Depends on how many kits we're building at the same time. So if we've got more than 100 kits in the queue, because we go through dealers like Aircraft Spruce, Calgary Pilot Supply, Four Seasons Survival. We've got dealers and distributors that sell these on Amazon, and sometimes we've got 100 kits in the queue before we can get to this one. Usually we can still get it done within 3 weeks, 3 weeks to a month, because we keep everything in stock. We've always got a stock on all of this stuff. So it's just a matter of taking, you know, the guys, and it's actually done in Strathroy, Ontario. So basically, and we've got the full warehouse out there, so the guys go in every single day, you know, and they've got kits to do everything from the little alphas all the way up to the 10.7s. They dump it out, they make their piles, and then they turn around and basically they've got a wall with different boxes of stuff, but they know exactly what's going to be in it. So they'll grab the 4.7 box, okay, boom, there's the replacement stuff for the 4.7. They repack it, and it's usually out the door. If we've got 0 kits in the queue, it's next day. So it just depends on how many kits we're behind at the time. Right now that we've got these 50 out, I would say we're probably only another 30 or 40 behind right now. So if you sent this kit back, and we've had people that have done that before as well, they'll buy a kit and then, well, what do you mean I can't open it? Well, I want to see what's inside of it. So they'll dump it out like this, and then they'll throw it back in the box and ship it back and say, okay, yeah, I approve, now repack it for me. Yeah, okay, it's like a day, 2 days tops, you know, as long as we don't have a whole lot of other stuff ahead of them. So, but no, we keep all of this stuff in stock. We're constantly making new orders on stuff like this. Because the thing is, we like to buy this stuff in bulk, but we don't want to buy it in too much bulk where we've got it sitting around for a year before it goes into a case. So it's, you know, a lot of times there's shipping, you know, depending on what it takes to get products back to us. But like I said, we do keep a stock on everything that you see here. So yeah, so for example, if you ship us back 50 all at the same time, I would say we could probably give you a turnaround time of 2 to 3 weeks on those, as long as we're not bombarded with other orders. And that obviously depends on the season. Some seasons are a whole lot busier than others. So, if that answers your question. Anybody else? Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, guys.